Morning light filtered through the tall windows of Mr. Harrington's lavish mansion, casting golden patterns across the marble floors. The retired millionaire, known for his cold demeanor and firm distrust of people, sat alone in his study, his sharp eyes fixed on the security monitor. For the past 8 months, Maria, a quiet and diligent maid in her 30s, had been working in his home. She was always punctual, soft-spoken, and never once gave him a reason to doubt her, but Harrington believed no one could resist temptation forever, especially not when surrounded by wealth. With suspicion eating away at him, he devised a test. That morning, he intentionally left the door of his walk-in safe slightly ajar. Inside, neat stacks of crisp $100 bills were clearly visible, too tempting, he believed, for any person to ignore. He sat back, watching the screen with folded arms and narrowed eyes, waiting for Maria to enter the room. She didn't know she was being watched. For Harrington, this wasn't just about the money, it was about confirming what he thought he knew about the world, that trust was a luxury no one could afford. In his mind, people always had a price. And today, he was ready to watch Maria reveal hers. What he didn't expect, however, was that this quiet woman might teach him something he hadn't felt in years: shame, hope, and the possibility that perhaps not everyone is driven by greed. Maria stepped quietly into the grand master bedroom, the soft hum of her cleaning cart the only sound in the vast, silent space. She was going about her usual routine, dusting the shelves, straightening pillows, when she noticed something unusual. The heavy safe tucked into the wall, usually locked tight, was left slightly open. Inside, rows of cash sat in plain sight. Her eyes widened, not with greed, but with genuine concern. She looked around, confused, unsure if it was a mistake or a test. For a moment, she just stood there, torn between walking away and doing something about it. Then, without touching a single dollar, Maria slowly and gently pushed the safe door shut. She didn't even glance twice at the money. Instead, she reached into her apron pocket, pulled out a small notepad, and scribbled something down. She left the note neatly on Mr. Harrington's desk and quietly resumed her work, as if nothing had happened. All the while, Mr. Harrington sat watching from his office, eyes locked on the live feed from the security camera. He had expected hesitation, maybe even temptation, but not this. Not the simple act of choosing honesty when no one was looking. Confused and intrigued, he zoomed in to catch a glimpse of the note. Something inside him stirred, not suspicion, but the faintest hint of shame. This woman, who had so little, had just walked past a fortune without blinking. He hadn't expected that. Not at all. Later that evening, the mansion was quiet once more. Mr. Harrington sat alone in his dimly lit office, the weight of the day pressing heavily on his mind. Curiosity gnawed at him as he reached for the small note Maria had left on his desk. It was written in neat, careful handwriting, and as he read the words, his chest tightened. "Sir, I noticed your safe was left open. I made sure everything stayed untouched. I know how hard people work to earn what they have. Just like I'm working hard for my son's surgery. Thank you for trusting me in your home." He read the note twice, then a third time, his fingers trembling slightly. The mention of her son caught him off guard. Maria had never spoken of her personal life, never asked for help, never gave him a reason to believe she was struggling. And yet, here she was, choosing integrity over desperation. The room suddenly felt colder, emptier. Mr. Harrington leaned back in his chair, the paper still in his hand. A man who had built his fortune on skepticism and control now sat completely still, quietly moved by the humility in Maria's words. She could have taken the money, no one would have known. But instead, she closed the safe, wrote a thank you, and walked away. In that moment, something shifted inside him. The test he had designed to prove a point had just unraveled the walls around his heart. And for the first time in years, Mr. Harrington felt something real: guilt, awe, and an unfamiliar sense of admiration. The next morning, Sunlight poured gently into the kitchen as Maria moved about quietly, preparing breakfast like she always did. She didn't know what to expect. Mr. Harrington had called her in early, his voice firm but unreadable. As she wiped the counter, he entered the room slowly, holding the note she had written the day before. Maria looked up, startled, unsure if she had done something wrong. But instead of anger, she saw something unexpected in his eyes: softness, vulnerability. He cleared his throat, but his voice wavered. "Maria. I saw what you did. I read your note." There was a long pause. "I set you up," he admitted, eyes downcast. "I left that safe open because I didn't trust you. I've lived most of my life believing everyone has a price." His voice cracked. "But you proved me wrong." Maria's eyes filled with tears, but she stayed silent. He stepped closer and asked softly, "You mentioned your son. What's going on?" With trembling hands, Maria shared her story. Her 8-year-old son, Luis, had been diagnosed with a heart condition. The surgery could save him, but it was far beyond what she could afford, even after working extra jobs and saving every penny. She hadn't told anyone, just kept going, quietly hoping. By the time she finished, Mr. Harrington was visibly shaken. The woman he doubted had more dignity in her silence than he'd ever found in all his wealth. And in that quiet kitchen, something in him broke, and something new began to heal. Weeks later, a gentle breeze rustled the curtains of a hospital recovery room where Maria sat beside her son, Luis, who was sleeping peacefully, a faint smile on his face. Tubes and monitors surrounded him, but the worst was over. The surgery had been a success. Maria clutched his tiny hand, tears slipping down her cheeks, this time out of relief and overwhelming gratitude. Mr. Harrington stood quietly by the doorway, watching the tender moment unfold. He had paid for everything: the operation, the recovery, even offered to cover future medical care. But he didn't want thanks. For the first time in years, his act of giving wasn't about control, but compassion. Seeing Maria's love for her child, her strength, and her unwavering honesty had awakened something long buried within him. Luis stirred, opened his eyes, and whispered, "Mama." Maria smiled through tears and gently stroked his hair. She turned to Mr. Harrington, who stepped forward and placed a small stuffed bear by Luis's side. Their eyes met, no words were needed. The silence between them spoke of trust, respect, and something deeper, a shared understanding of what it means to care. In the weeks that followed, Mr. Harrington offered Maria a new role, house manager, with better pay and more flexibility to care for her son. But more than a job, he gave her something else: belief. In her. In goodness. And in the idea that wealth means little without heart. For the first time in a long while, both their lives had changed, for the better.